Good morning everyone. Now we are going to start this unit 4, which is about memory system. For the previous unit we had Morris Minnow book as the reference. For this unit the computer organization by Karl Hamacher is the reference book for this entire unit. And in this unit we are going to study about the various aspects of memory system. We begin with basic concepts and about semiconductor, RAM, types, organization, its structure, and then about different ROM and the concepts of cache memory and the performance considerations related to memory and the virtual memory concept and secondary storage, and finally about this direct memory access or DMA transfer. Okay, so we'll begin with studying this basic concepts related to memory organization. Programs and the data are held in the memory of the computer. An ideal memory should be fast, large and inexpensive. But unfortunately, it is not possible to achieve all the three aspects simultaneously. We can get increased speed and size, but only at an increased cost. So, a lot of work has been done in developing very clever structures, okay, to improve the apparent speed and size, at the same time keeping the cost at a reasonable value. Let us review some of the basic concepts related to memory, and then we will get into this types of memory one by one. Okay. In this topic we are going to see about this concepts of memory access and two important parameters to assess the memory, and the concept of cache memory and virtual memory. So the maximum size of the memory that can be used in any computer is determined by the addressing scheme. So this diagram shows the basic connection between processor and memory. In the simplest sense, the processor interacts with memory using this register MAR and MDR. This we have seen in the basic computer case, right? MAR stands for memory address register, MDR stands for memory data register. And we have this address lines, data lines and some control lines connecting the processor and the memory. And whenever memory wants to read or write, processor wants to read or write from memory, it uses these signals and the register. In case the number of address lines is k, the processor is having a k bit address bus, then it can address 2 power k number of locations. Okay, so that is the address space of the computer or processor. If we have k bit address line or k bits of address, it can be used to address 2 power k locations, and each location can be of size n bits, and this we call as the word size. Okay, so whenever there is a read or write access to memory, n bits of data will be accessed in one memory cycle. So this we call it as the word size. Okay, that is the number of bits we can access from the memory, either read or write, in one memory cycle. Okay, so in addition to this n bit data bus, n bit is nothing but the word length. Okay, and k bit address bus can address up to 2 power k addressable locations. And in addition we have some control lines also, like read write control, memory function completed and many more. This read write control is used to indicate whether the operation is read or write. Okay, and this MFC is another signal the memory uses to indicate the memory function is completed. Okay, so to interrupt or indicate this processor. Okay, and we may have some more control lines like number of bytes to be transferred and so on. So in case of block transfer, where usually the data are written in continuous locations or read from continuous locations, we need to specify only the starting address and how many bytes of data to be transferred. So in that case, we require some more control lines to indicate this number of bytes to be transferred. Okay, and moreover, this memory read write access may be done in a synchronized fashion with a reference clock, or it can happen in an asynchronous manner using special control signals. To read from the memory, the processor places the address in the memory address register, and then it sets the read write control line to 1. Here read is active if the value is 1, and in case the read write control is 0, it indicates a write operation. Okay, so to this signal, the memory responds by placing the data from the address location onto the data lines, and then it confirms the action by asserting this MFC signal. So when the processor receives this MFC signal, it loads the data on the data lines into the memory data register. Similarly, a processor writes data into the memory location by loading the address of this location into memory address register, and it loads the data into the memory data register. Then it indicates the write operation by setting this read write control line to 0. Okay. To measure the speed of memory, two important measures are used, or parameters are used. One is the memory access time, another one is the memory cycle time. Memory access time is a time lags between the initiation of an operation like a memory read or memory write when it is initiated and the completion of that operation. So time between the beginning or initiation of an operation and the completion of that operation, that is the time, for example, the time between the read signal and the MFC signal. So this is called as the memory access time. And memory cycle time is the delay required between two successive memory operations. Like between two successive memory read operations, there must be some minimum time delay. So this is called memory cycle time. So it's the minimum time delay required between two successive memory operations, and usually this cycle time is slightly longer than the access time. And how much longer, it depends on the implementation details of the particular memory unit. And memory unit is called random access memory or RAM if a particular location can be accessed either for read or write in some fixed amount of time, which is not dependent on the location or address. Okay, so any address or location can be accessed in a fixed amount of time. It doesn't depend on which is that location. Okay. On the other hand, we have some serial or partly serial storage devices like magnetic disks, where the access time depends on which is the or where the current position is, okay, and where this data to be accessed is. Okay, so these are called serial or partly serial storage devices. Usually, the processor can process instructions and data at a faster rate compared to this access time of the memory or cycle time, and hence the memory cycle time becomes the bottleneck in the system. So to reduce this memory access time, there are different strategies applied. So one is this cache memory. It's an important concept. It's a cache memory. This cache memory is a small but fast memory which is inserted between this main memory and the processor. It always holds the currently active segments of the program and their data. So this is useful to improve the speed, okay, speed performance of the processor, because this memory access time is an important metric which actually decides the performance of the processor. And this cache memory, what is that size of the memory, whether a cache memory is available or not, greatly decides the overall throughput and response time of the processor. Okay, and another important concept is this virtual memory, and this memory, cache memory and all, we will be studying in detail later in this unit. Virtual memory is again a concept. It is actually the physical memory is much smaller, but it appears to be a larger one. Okay, so in virtual memory system, we used to observe a apparently large size of physical memory, but the real physical memory is as such very small. Okay, so the data which are presently active, or the program section which is presently being active, it's only mapped into this real physical memory or physical locations of the memory, and the remaining addresses which appear to be everything in the same memory, the remaining addresses which corresponds to the non-active portions of the program. So those are actually mapped onto the other storage devices which are not in the main memory but in the secondary storage devices. And we have one memory management unit which takes care of this conversion or mapping between this virtual addresses and the physical addresses. That is, the data may be stored in physical memory location that have addresses different from those specified by your program. And the memory control circuit translates the address specified by the program into a real address using which we can access the physical memory. So the address generated by the processor is referred to as a virtual or logical address. And this virtual address space is mapped to the physical memory where data are actually stored. And this mapping function is implemented by a special memory control circuit which we call as the memory management unit. And this concept is used to increase the apparent size of the physical memory. So the virtual address space can be as large as the maximum addressing capability of the processor or address space, but at any time only the active portion of the space is mapped in or really available in the physical memory. So thus during every memory cycle, an address processing mechanism determines whether the address information is available in the physical memory unit or not. If it is not available, then a page of word containing the desired word is transferred from the disk onto the memory. Okay, and this mapping between the physical and virtual address is also going to change during runtime. As the program active segment changes, this mapping function will also change, and this is taken care of by this memory management unit. In case the page displaces some page already in the memory that is currently inactive, okay, later that page may be required. So actually the number of this transfers between the disk and your main memory, okay, must be kept minimal within a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so this is actually handled by your memory management unit. So this access or mapping is done in such a judicial manner that the number of transfers between disk and the main memory is minimized within some reasonable amount of time, and it will take care of this probability of finding the required data or program within the main memory very high, at least for most of the time. Next we will see about this semiconductor RAM memories, its structure, organization and all. So this figure shows a RAM memory organization. Okay, this random access memory, as I told, it's going to have access time independent of the location, right? And the cycle time, memory cycle time for RAM ranges from hundreds of nanoseconds to very few nanoseconds. It depends on the on the cost actually you can afford. We can select a memory with a very fast access times or cycle time. And basically this memory cells, each cell can hold 1 bit or store 1 bit. These cells are arranged in the form of an array. So each row of cell corresponds to one word. You can see here example case of 16 cross 8 RAM, just for explaining the concept. And commercial RAM are much more larger, right? So we have this address decoder. This is one possible arrangement or organization of RAM. Here we have an address decoder. So the size of this RAM is 16 cross 8. That is, word size is 8. At a time, 8 bits of data can be accessed. And we have 16 such locations. To address 16 locations, first we need only 4 address lines. So 16 is 2 power 4. So we have here 4 address lines, A0, A1, A2, A3, used to address this 16 locations. And there is an address decoder which will convert or map these 4 lines into 16 output lines. It's a 4 to 16 decoder. Okay. Each output line of the decoder will select one word, and we have in this example 16 words. Each word will be storing 8 bits of data. So you can have here, you can see B0, B1 up to B7, we have 8 bits or 8 cells. 8 cells, each cell can store 1 bit of data. And to each cell we have 2 bit lines running. For example, here B7, B7 bar, here B1 and B1 bar, okay, like this. And these bit lines are connected to the sense write circuit. Okay, so for each bit line, each bit, we have 2 bit lines and we have one sense or write circuit. Okay, so this is the basic structure, and we can see to this sense write circuit the control signals are applied. We have read write control, chip select control. So these are the control signals. Okay, it's a one possible way of organizing the RAM like a matrix form. And we have the address decoder, decoding and selecting one word at a time, and each word is having a series of bits, and each bit is connected to the sense or write circuit using 2 bit lines. Okay, so these sense write circuits are used to store or retrieve, write or retrieve data using this IO lines. When you read the information stored in the cells, you have to place an appropriate address to select that particular word line, and these bit lines are used to transmit the data from the selected word line to the data IO lines. Okay. Similarly, they receive the input information and store it in the cells of the selected word. So on the whole, this particular memory is capable of storing 128 bits, and it requires 14 external connections for addresses, data and control lines. That is 4 address lines, 8 data lines, and this read write and chip select control. And along with this, it also needs the power supply and ground lines. Okay. So put together, it requires a total of 19 external connections or pins. And we have an alternate arrangement called row column decoding, where the same number of cells can be organized in a different way. Okay. So we'll see that next. This diagram shows the alternate way of organizing the same memory. You can see there is only one bit data input output, okay, and we have 10 bits of addresses, and these address lines are split into row and column address. So we have, out of this 10, 5 bits are representing the row address and the 5 bit is used as the column address. So these 5 bits are applied to a decoder. So this 5-bit decoder converts this 5-bit input into a 2 power 5 or 32 word line outputs. Okay, so word select outputs. So each output of this decoder is going to select or used to select one word line, and we have 32 such word lines. Here a row address selects a row of 32 cells, all of which are accessed in parallel. However, according to column address, only one of these cells is connected to the external data line by the output multiplexer or input multiplexer. In this case, a 10-bit address is needed, but there is only one data line. So, if you check the number of external connections, instead of 19 which we had for the earlier organization, now it is only 15 external connections. So this organization is meant for reducing the number of external connections basically. So next we will see in detail about what is there inside that cells. And this diagram shows static RAM cells. Okay. Memories that consist of circuits capable of retaining their state as long as the power is applied are known as static memories. So this figure shows a static RAM cell and how it could be implemented. One possible way. Basic static RAM cell is nothing but two inverters cross coupled to form a latch. So it's a two inverters cross coupled. Okay, that's the basic RAM cell. The latch is connected to two bit lines by the transistors T1 and T2. So here is your T1 and T2. Those bit lines we have seen in the organization are here, and these lines goes to the sense right circuit. Okay, so these lines are connected to the sense right amplifier circuits. Okay, and these are the lines where the bit to be stored or kept or bits to be read or read through, and these bit lines are connected through this transistors T1 and T2 to the inverter section. So this is the basic cell. Okay, so when you want to store, for example, a write 1, okay, so the B should be made 1 should be kept in this B, okay, and this B bar will be set to 0. So if you want to write a 0 into this location, and of course this word line will be selected by using proper address, and this transistors T1 and T2, whenever the word line is selected, this T1 and T2 will be conducting. So the inverter section is connected to the bit lines. So this 0 enters through T2 to the inverter input here. Okay, this is 0, and similarly this 1 enters as input to this inverter. Okay, and output is going to be 0, and this 0 is also fed as input to this inverter, and hence it's because of this cross coupled connection, as long as the power is there, even when the bit lines are disconnected, this inverter stages will be maintaining the data stored. Okay, so in this case this inverter input becomes 1 when you write a 1, so this becomes 0, and this is the complement value or B bar line, and this is the actual bit line, and this 1 will be stored as long as the power is there or until we rewrite or change the value. Similarly, for reading also, we have to select the word line, and these bit lines which are connected to the sense circuit are sensed, okay, and whatever charge available, values available at the output of the inverters will be transferred to this bit lines, and this will be sensed by the sensing circuit, and accordingly the data will be read. And this diagram shows, the second diagram shows an example implementation using CMOS memory cells. The inverters can be implemented using different technology or different circuits, and this shows one possible implementation using CMOS. Okay, so we can see here two cross-coupled CMOS inverters acting as a SRAM cell. And the major advantage of using CMOS SRAMs is their very low power consumption, because we know that's the advantage of CMOS. Only when there is a active path existing between this VCC and ground, the power will be drawn, okay, or dissipated, and this happens only during a active operation. In case of CMOS, you can see at any time one of the transistors in a inverter is going to be off, in off state, so it disconnects actually the power supply and ground lines. So current flows only when there is a access happening, okay. Remaining time one of these transistors will be in the off state, disconnecting the supply and ground lines, okay. And SRAMs can be accessed very quickly, and access time of very few nanoseconds are available. And this SRAM is also called as volatile memory because their contents are lost once the power is interrupted. So other type of RAM is called the dynamic RAM or DRAM, which can be operated in either asynchronous or synchronous fashion. And this figure shows basic DRAM cell. Though the SRAMs are very fast, they are of higher cost because the cells require several transistors. It's a larger cell, and this can be made less expensive by using a simpler cell. However, such cells do not retain their state indefinitely. Okay, that is a problem. In case of the cross-coupled inverter structure, as long as the power is on, the data will be retained indefinitely. Okay, but in this DRAM structure, it is not so. The data stored will be available only for some fixed amount of time. Okay, so after that it will decay, because the DRAM cells are basically capacitors, which stores the value by means of charge stored in the capacitor. So to store information in this cell, the transistor T, this must be turned on by selecting using the appropriate values to the word line, and then we have to apply the appropriate voltage to be written, whether the bit to be written is 1 or 0. Accordingly, the appropriate value must be given to the bit line. So this causes a known amount of charge to be stored in the capacitor. So when this transistor is conducting, depending on the bit line value, the capacitor will be charged to a known value. So after the transistor is turned off, okay, the capacitor begins to discharge. So after writing, after deselecting this word line, the transistor T will be in the off condition. At this stage, the capacitor is supposed to store this value, but it will be slowly discharging, because even though the transistor is off, there will be a small leakage happening, okay, and it's going to conduct by very small current, maybe in terms of picoamps, but it is not zero, okay. So hence the information stored in the cell can be retrieved correctly only if it is read before the charge on the capacitor drops below some threshold value. So during a read operation, the transistor in a selected cell is turned on. A sense amplifier connected to the bit line detects whether charge stored on the capacitor is above or below this threshold value. Okay, so if it is above the threshold value, it drives the bit line to a full voltage that represents the logic value 1, and this is actually used to recharge the capacitor to the full charge. Okay, so if the sense amplifier detects the charge on the capacitor below the threshold value, it pulls the bit line to ground level, because that means actually a 0 is stored or 0 is read actually, and this ensures the capacitor will have no charge. Okay, so thus whenever we read the contents of the cell, automatically it's going to refresh. And not only this, if a particular cell is not read for some time, okay, roughly some maybe tens of milliseconds or some 60 milliseconds or so, the charge stored may be lost. Okay, so this cells must be refreshed before that time. So the DRAM requires refreshing circuitry to take care of this, which will be regularly refreshing the cells by selecting the word lines. And this diagram shows the organization of an example DRAM chip. The size is actually 16 megabit. Okay, so it's arranged in here in this fashion of 2m into 8. Okay, 2m into 8. So the cells are organized in the form of 4k cross 4k array. So the 4096 cells in each row are divided into 512 groups of 8, so that a row can store 512 bytes of data. So therefore, how many address lines are required for 512 bytes of data? So we need actually 12 address bits to select a row, and another 9 bits to specify a group of 8 bits in the selected row. So thus a total of 21 bit address is needed to access a byte from this memory. And usually this higher order 12 bits and lower order 9 bits of the address constitute this row and column addresses of the byte. And you can see this row and column address decoding shown here, right? So to reduce this number of external connections, often this row and column addresses are multiplexed. In this case, we have 12 and 12 pins for the row. Okay, and this is multiplexed with the column address. So during a read or write operation, the row address is first applied. It is loaded into the row address latch in response to a signal on row address row. You can see this row address latch, which is activated by row address throw signal. By these special signals, it's a asynchronous access. You can see these are control signals. A row address throw signal activates this row address latch. So when the address bus carries the row address, and when the strobe is active, the row address latch will be capturing this address, storing this address. Okay, then a read operation is initiated, in which all cells on the selected row are read as well as refreshed. And shortly after this row address is loaded, the column address, that 9-bit column address is applied to the address pins and loaded into the column address latch using this column address strobe control signal. So the information in this latch is decoded, and the appropriate group of 8 sense or write circuits are selected. If the read-write control signal indicates a read operation, that is, when the read-write control value is equal to 1, the output values of the selected circuits are transferred to the data lines D7 to D0. For a write operation, the information on the data bus D7 to D0 is transferred to the selected circuits. This information is then used to overwrite the contents of the selected cells in the corresponding 8 columns. And this RAS, CAS control signals are active lows in most of the commercial DRAM chips. That's why here it is shown as the active low signals. So this latching of the addresses happen when they changes from actually high to low, right? To ensure that the contents of DRAM are maintained, each row of cells must be assessed periodically. A refresh circuit, as I told, there will be a separate refresh circuit which takes care of this refreshing function automatically. So in this particular example, we assume the memory device is controlled asynchronously. So a specialized memory controller circuit is required to provide the necessary control signals RAS and CAS, the row and column address strokes that governs the timing. The processor must be aware of this and account for this delay in the response from the memory. Okay, so that's why it's called a asynchronous DRAM. And we have another kind of DRAM which can be synchronous also, and most of the present day DRAMs will be synchronous type. And there is something called this fast paging mode. Usually when you say page, it refers to a large set of data words, right? When we use the term block, it refers to a smaller group of words from the memory. And when you use the term page, it generally refers to the much larger block. Okay, and you could have observed the contents of all those 4096 cells in the selected row are sensed during any memory access, but only the particular 8 bits are placed on the data lines. So this byte is selected by the column address, and if you have a latch at the output of the sense amplifier in each column, the application of this row address will load the latches corresponding to all bits in the selected row, entire row. Then it is only necessary to apply different column addresses to place these bytes onto the data lines, okay, because the entire set of bytes will be there in the latches, okay. And this is one possible one arrangement which make it possible to retrieve or access blocks of data in a faster manner. So this is actually called this fast paging mode. So in this mode, actually the transfer of bytes is done in a sequential order, which is applied by which can be made possible by applying a consecutive sequence of column addresses under the control of this successive column address stroke signals. This scheme allows transferring a complete block of data at a much faster rate that can be achieved for transfers involving when you compare to transfer involving random addresses. So if you store this continuous or successive block of data in this sequential fashion, we can have accesses in a much faster rate. So this block transfer capability is called by the name fast page mode. Okay, so faster rate attainable in block transfer can be used in applications where there is some regular patterns. We want to retrieve consecutive locations of or blocks of data such as graphics processing or image processing. Okay, so this is a very useful feature, and it's also used to transfer data between the main memory and the cache memory. This particular mode is used to transfer data between main memory and the cache memory. As I mentioned, most of recent day DRAMs are of synchronous type. Okay, so here the cell array is same as in the asynchronous DRAMs. The address and data connections are buffered by means of registers. SRAM, SDRAMs or synchronous DRAMs can have different modes of operation, and we can select this by writing control information into a mode register. For example, the burst operation of different lengths can be specified. The burst operations use the block transfer capability, just now we have seen, or the fast paging mode feature. Okay, so in this RAMs, it is not necessary to provide externally generated pulses on the column address strobe line to select successive columns. The necessary control signals are provided internally using a column counter because it's a synchronous circuit now, and the clock signal. So we just need a counter and a clock signal to select the successive columns. We need not generate this using an external circuit if you want to implement the page mode. Okay, and new data can be placed on the data lines in each clock cycle then, and every such action is triggered by the rising edge of the clock. This diagram shows the timing diagram for a example burst read operation. Here the burst size we have taken for example is 4. Okay, so 4 words or 4 bytes. First, the row address is latched under control of the row address strobe signal. So you can see this clock. Okay, so here the rising edge triggers the actions. Okay, and we have the read write control signal here, the row address strobe, column address strobe, and this is the address bus and data bus. Okay, so initially during this clock you can see this read write control is changing from low to high. So read write control high means read operation is selected, and this row address strobe is made low. Okay, so this is active low. Now the row address strobe is selected or active, and because of this, when the RAS signal goes to low from high, you can see here the address bus, okay, is having this row address. Okay, the row address is getting latched into the row address latches because of this row address strobe signal, and this is taking one cycle, and after this the row address signal is deactivated, and here the row address has been latched. Okay, and after 2 cycles only you can see this column address is getting latched. Okay, and just before this we can see this column address strobe is active, right? So initially the row address strobe is active, and this latches the address bus content to the row latch. Okay, and after 2 cycles only the column address strobe can be activated, because this address latching requires 2 to 3 cycles. In this case we assume it requires 2 cycles, and then the column address strobe is activated here, which latches this column address. Okay, after this, it's after 1 cycle delay you can see the data is placed. Okay, so once the column address is applied, it will take another 1 cycle delay to get the data moved to this output data line, right? And this is taking so much of delay. You can see from the time instant the read write signal is activated here. Okay, so we have 1 2 3 4 5 cycles. Okay, 5 cycles after activating your read write signal here, we are getting the first byte of data available on the data bus. Okay, but after this, for every cycle we could get the next immediate bytes in this burst mode. Okay, so that's the advantage of having this fast paging mode. After this, every time we need not have any address latching required, only the initial address is required, and automatically it's going to select the next column set in the successive clock cycles. Latency and bandwidth, these are the two important parameters used to assess the performance of a RAM. Latency here refers to the amount of time taken to transfer one word of data to or from the memory. So this serves as the complete performance indicator in case a single word transfer is involved. If you are accessing one word from the memory, either read or write one word from the memory, the amount of time taken to achieve this we call by the name latency. But in case of block transfers, the required time depends also on the rate at which the successive words can be accessed. So earlier we have seen this timing diagram for a example block transfer. Okay, so initially to get the very first byte, it took longer time. In our example case, we have seen 5 clock cycles are involved to get the first byte on the data bus. Okay, so when the time we have initiated the process by setting this read write line, okay, until the time we get this very first byte on the data bus, this time difference we call as the latency. So it took actually 5 cycles, but after this, for every successive cycle we are able to get the next bytes. Okay, in case of a fast page mode. So in such a burst transfer or block transfer case, this latency will not be the complete performance indicator. The time performance depends also on the rate at which the successive words are transferred and also on what is the block size. Okay, so if it is a block size of 4 as we have seen, the total time required to get all the 4 bytes of data will be some value, right? In case we have a larger block, a block of 32 bytes, okay, then that value, the performance will be different. So the performance varies depending on how many words we are transferring in each block, okay, and the rate at which we are going to get the successive words, right? So another term called bandwidth or memory bandwidth is used. So this bandwidth refers to the number of bytes that can be transferred per second. So it's another indicator used in case of this burst transfer. And this bandwidth strictly doesn't depend only on the memory performance, because here we are referring to the number of bytes that can be transferred from processor to memory or memory to processor per second. So it also depends on the speed of the links. Okay, so this bandwidth performance depends on the speed of access to the stored data and the number of bits that can be accessed in parallel, right? That is the bus size, the data bus size. So it's actually the product of the rate at which the data are transferred and how many such bits of data can be transferred simultaneously. So that is, it's a product of rate at which data are transferred and the width of the data bus. Okay, so these two parameters are serving as performance indicators for the memory access speed. And we have another kind of a dynamic RAM structure. Okay, so this is called DDR RAM. You could have heard of DDR, okay, which stands for double data rate RAM. So double data rate synchronous dynamic RAM. In short, DDR SDRAM. Okay, so this RAM is able to provide access for every edge of clock cycle. Usually, we'll use this rising edge or else the falling edge of the clock cycle when you have synchronous transfer. Usually in the earlier examples, often we consider like for every rising edge of the clock, the signals are getting triggered or latched and all, right? So in this case, for every edge, both for the rising edge and for the falling edge, there will be a memory access. So this is made possible by organizing the cells in two banks, and each bank can be accessed separately. And the idea behind it is the consecutive words of a given block, the next immediate words, right? So if the word number 1 is stored in the first bank, the word number 2, the next immediate word to be accessed, will be stored in the second bank. So like this it will be stored. So the consecutive words of a given block are stored in different banks. So two words can be transferred in successive edges of the same clock. So that way we can get the double the data rate we could have achieved using a single bank organization. Okay. So DDR RAM is a much faster in specifically it's actually double the speed, right? So it can have double speed compared to the SDRAM structure. Okay, so this is made possible by means of this dual bank organization. Okay, so this is about the RAM, and next class we'll see in continuation of this how to structure much larger RAM memories, okay, and its organization. Okay, thank you.